Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Jocelyn, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at DoubleRadius. Like always, the goal of our webinar is to feature technology that will help you build better networks. Today, we're excited to host Siklu to speak on the topic of multi-gigabit wireless fiber. Joining us from Siklu today for the presentation are Alex Dorden and Dave Sumi. As the VP and GM of Siklu Americas, Alex focuses on leading, creating, and executing the strategic vision to provide gigabit speed wireless connectivity for multiple applications, including helping to bridge the digital divide in underserved urban as well as rural areas. As Siklu's VP of Marketing, Dave promotes and drives the adoption of 5G mmWave technologies into the international wireless marketplace and is also responsible for all the company's marketing activities. Before we get started, a couple quick housekeeping items. First, enter any questions you have into the questions box. It's better to type them in during the presentation instead of waiting until the end so we can queue them up to be answered in our question and answer session. Second, after the webinar, a survey will pop up on your screen. Please take a minute to complete it as we'd really appreciate any feedback that you have for us. And with that, let's get started. I'll hand it over now to Dave to get us started.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Welcome, everybody. We're going to try and be efficient with your time today. We have a lot of material that we'd like to cover about millimeter wave and wireless fiber. So with that, we're going to jump right into it. We'll look at the agenda. A couple of things. What we always like to do with an agenda is we want to kind of tell you a little bit about ourselves. We'll talk a little bit about the millimeter wave, particular what makes it special and why it's different from most other frequencies. We'll also focus on the applications. I mean, we're not here just for a technology webinar. You guys, I'm assuming the audience want to know, how do I use this? What's it good for? Where's it going to help out? Where's it going to help me and my customers? Then we'll hand it over to Alex. Alex will go over kind of the product portfolio that Siklu offers, which I will steal a little bit thunder, is the broadest millimeter wave portfolio in the industry. Then we'll move on to our Multihaul Terragraph. Terragraph is something you may have heard about. We're going to try and do a little explaining for you if you're not really comfortable, you want to know more. We'll definitely go through a little bit on Terragraph. Then we'll follow with our software as a service suite of things that we do. Siklu is far more than a box company, and not to use the cliche, but we are a solutions company, and our software solutions are a huge part of that. And then we'll do a summary, and as Jocelyn mentioned, we'll go ahead and take some Q&A from there. So first, who is Siklu? Siklu, you know, it's interesting. Siklu has been in existence 12 years, 13 years now, and Siklu was founded with the goal of making affordable millimeter wave. When Siklu was founded, a millimeter wave link by any other company would give you about 1 gigabit per second, and it would cost you $20,000. Now, today, with Siklu's leadership and competition, of course, prices are substantially reduced. I think you can get 10 gigabit links these days for well under $10,000 a link. Shows you the growth of the market. So with that early lead, the focus for Siklu's existence was to make it affordable, not just in patents and so on, but in manufacturing. We have many patents in the manufacturing mode. This allows us to make silicon, make the radio components a lot more cheaply than if we had to do it with discrete components. And the net of all of this work for the last 12, 13 years has been, if you look at the E-band products, our Etherhaul line, which are, you know, from 1 gigabit to 10 gigabits full duplex, we have 57% market share in the United States and 63% in the United Kingdom. So, you know, we think these numbers demonstrate what our customers know, which is if you're looking for E-band, V-band solutions, Siklu is the #1 in the market. The other element that I think is important that I touched on was the portfolio. We have 60 gigahertz, we have 70, 80 gigahertz, we have point-to-point, we have point-to-multipoint, and with the release of our Terragraph system, we now have mesh. So the idea here and the concept is that when you're designing a network to cover a geography, there's no one box. You're going to use pretty much every tool in the toolbox to make sure you bring that gigabit connectivity to all the customers in your area. So with that, we have 45 countries, 100,000 units, 250 smart cities, and 40 patents. All of this is powering Siklu as we go into 2021. So the question becomes, why wireless fiber? Now, I think everybody acknowledges today that the demand for bits has never gone down in history. It's only been ramping up. And so what used to be acceptable a year ago, 50 megabits, 100 megabits, now everybody wants gigabits. So if your work, if your goal is to provide wireless gigabits to people or gigabits at all, there's really only a couple of ways to do it. Fiber, of course, we're all familiar with fiber. Fiber is excellent. Fiber is the dominant, gigabit communications medium in the world, and will almost always and will almost certainly be that way for a long time, if not ever. It's secure, but the challenges with fiber, it's expensive. Getting the permits to do the trenching, if you're allowed to do the trenching, can take some time. The implementation can be very complex. I've seen quotes from service providers that show it's $150,000 per mile to lay fiber. So, the general rule of thumb is if you've got fiber, great, use it. If you don't have fiber, then you want to look at a couple of different wireless options that you can deliver those gigabits. And the first one that everybody comes to mind on the right side of the slide is 5G new radio. There's been a ton of talk about 5G mobile, 5G new radio that's coming out. Many of you probably have the latest iPhone, which is a 5G phone. And there are a lot of things, there are a lot of really attractive pieces of 5G new radio. Industry standard, of course, means your phone works wherever you go. 5G here is the same as 5G in Europe. It's the same as 5G in Africa. And it's in the phone. So it's very easy for everybody to have one. But some of the maybe the not as good sides to 5G new radio in the application of fixed wireless is it requires a license. So, who gets to deploy 5G networks? Typically 2, maybe 3 different mobile carriers per region. That's it. And if you don't have that license, you're not going to be deploying 5G new radio. The spectrum that they use in 5G new radio, even though some of the 5G new radios will be operating in the 28 gigahertz bands, they're still only using about 2 gigahertz of the spectrum. And while that may sound like a lot, when I compare that to what we have in the V band and E band, it's really just a fraction. 5G new radio, fantastic standard, designed for mobility. So you're giving up a lot of your data rate. There's a complexity to the network architecture, all for mobility. And in our applications, where we're trying to do gigabit wireless in a fixed environment, it's really just making things harder. So where do we go? So where we're here talking about today is what we call fixed 5G millimeter wave. And this is specifically millimeter wave up at 60 gigahertz and above. It's secure. It's secure both at the PHY layer for a lot of different reasons. It's secure at the layer 2 with AES encryption. So then it's secure at layer 3 in terms of how we design our systems. Fixed 5G also has huge capacities. It has huge capacities because we have 24 gigahertz of spectrum, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. What we're also seeing, as I hinted at earlier, affordable. The price is the competition as gigabit becomes more and more as a table stakes requirement. More companies, competition is good, and it's driving volume and it's driving prices down. Fixed 5G millimeter wave is also extremely low latency. 4G LTE, he kind of gets a bit of a rap, 10, 20 millisecond latencies. And again, 10 years ago, that would have sounded great. But for the applications that everybody wants today, single-digit millisecond latencies are what the market's telling us they need. And that's what fixed 5G can do. For some reasons, we'll talk a little bit about immune to interference. One of the frequency bands in the fixed 5G domain is the 60 gigahertz, which is unlicensed. The unlicensed allows anybody to use it and has a lot of positive attributes, but people remember 5 gigahertz systems which are out there, and there's definitely a bit of a noise issue with 5 gigahertz these days, which is a sign of its success, frankly. But in the 60 gigahertz market, because of the physical attributes of the beams, et cetera, interference is almost never going to happen. It's very, very difficult to conceive of an environment, even 10 years down the road, where we'll see interference as an issue. And then finally, really fast time to market. We have products on the shelf. Our partners such as DoubleRadius have products on the shelf. You can deploy these. The installation and commissioning of these systems is very, very fast. Some of the products actually have beam steering to make it even easier and lower the skill level that's required. but we can show you how these networks can be deployed in weeks, not months. So what is millimeter wave? And this is a spectrum slide here. Most of you are probably familiar with this. Almost all the mobile networks today are in, I'll say sub 3 gigahertz, although there are some CBRS networks coming out, so we'll say sub 4 gigahertz. That has to do with the mobility function and the coverage and the cost of making sure you have ubiquitous coverage with a mobile network. If you look at the next batch of frequency bands, the 28 and 38 gigahertz bands, there's a decent amount of spectrum there. It's not bad, and that's where 5G New Radio will move as they really deliver gigabit services. It will be in those bands. But if you compare all of the spectrum in those gray bands at the bottom and left over here, and then you look over to the right with the green and the purple, 24 gigahertz of spectrum. That's 24 gigahertz. That is the largest swath of spectrum all the way in the entire band. There's no frequency, there's no technology that has more access to more spectrum than the V-band and the E-band systems that are being deployed. So a little bit about the interference. So if you look at the E-band, the beam angle coming out of a 1-foot dish is 1 degree. And the E-band is point-to-point products. If you used a 2-foot dish in an E-band product, it's a half a degree. What this means is you can pretty much put 2 E-band radios on the same channel side by side, and because you have that physical isolation, you will not be interfering with each other. Same thing with V-band. V-band's a little bit broader. V-band is typically used for point-to-multipoint and now mesh applications. So usually the base station will have some wide angle 60, 90 degree antenna, and it's usually a beam steering. And then the subscriber units will have a very small angle aperture to talk back to them. All of this, if you compare to the 5 gigahertz, where the typical antenna beam angle in a 5 gigahertz is 10 degrees. So you can see when you have an angle that's 10 degrees, there's a lot of radio that's more or less RF pollution that is kind of filling up the noise floor for everybody else who wants to use those bands. So that's the intro to millimeter wave. Before we get into some other things, there's really three important things to remember about millimeter wave and these upper 60, 70, 80 bands: the multi-gigabit capacity, the no interference, and the fact that the installation can be extremely fast, and the ROI. Typically, when we work with our customers, they're telling us they need a return on investment of 2 years, sometimes 1 year, which is unheard of in the telecom networking industry. So where do we use this? There are, I mean, if you see the Siklu website, we have, I think, 12 different applications that we focus on and provide collateral on, but they're all kind of subsets of these really important 3 applications. Smart cities. As I mentioned, we have deployed with our customers in over 250 smart cities around the world. This is in the US, in the UK, in Europe, in Israel, and some even in Asia. In the smart cities, what's really important for these municipalities as they figure out what does it mean to be a smart city and how do I achieve that, the license-free spectrum means the city does not have to own a cellular license to be able to deploy. It means they can have gigabits. It means they can roll these things out. Many cities have vertical assets, street lights, poles, stop signs that these deployments can be used, use. And within the smart city, many of the applications that we support are typically high bandwidth applications. Video security, where the camera is out in a public domain or in a train station or in a park. We have public Wi-Fi, which had its well documented introduction several years ago, didn't do so well for a lot of reasons, but is making a comeback. Cities are now finding that public Wi-Fi, even if they have to pay a little to keep their network up and running, is such a boom, and it's become an expected feature that cities find they feel like they have to offer, or maybe those companies won't come to their cities. And then with these applications, carrier grade performance. That's one of Siklu's claim to fame. Our MTBFs are measured literally in decades. So for the smart cities with gigabit connectivity, we do a lot of work with the smart cities, and then the sub applications, video security, public Wi-Fi backhaul, even intelligent roadside, what I call eye-to-eye services for the intelligent transportation system. The most common application that people think of when they think of 5G fixed wireless is what we call gigabit wireless access. And this is bringing basic internet access to your home, to your apartment building, to your business, wherever you need gigabit access and fiber has not caught up to you yet. So the systems that we offer for this application, they're field proven. Remember, we've been shipping radios for 13 years now, and we've been shipping our point-to-multipoint radios, I think, for 5 years now. We have really, really innovative planning tools. So we have a planning tool that if you tell us where your fiber pop is and where your customers are in a KMZ, our tool can design a network of thousands of nodes, something that would be almost impossible to do manually, and we can do all of that within minutes. And with that design tool, you can ensure that you have complete network coverage. Metro and aggregation, this is really kind of where E-band got its start, where you have these point-to-point links, and initially, again, they were 1 gigabit. Today, the table, pretty much everybody in the market is offering a 10 gigabit full duplex solution. These are used in trunking applications. Sometimes they're used as access. If you want to drop a 10 gig connection on top of an apartment building with 200 apartments, you can be pretty sure they're all going to be happy with the performance. And the performance of these from a throughput and a range is extremely predictable and very reliable. We have our own link budget calculated tool, and we use industry data, etc. But the point is when you use Siklu's software tools to design your network, you can be assured that the network is going to run as predicted. And the other element of the metro and aggregation is it is largely E-band, and E-band is a lightly licensed band. In the United States, what does that mean? It means you fill out a one-page form. I think it's $75, and you have it for 5 years. So that's the definition of lightly licensed. So a couple of pretty diagrams to kind of highlight a little bit more about what we're doing. Gigabit wireless everywhere. What you can see here in the lower middle is the green line. That's the fiber. So I've got fiber. That's great. Fiber's coming to the school, but it doesn't go everywhere else. So now what you can do with that fiber, you can see we have some point-to-point E-band products going to different nodes or different buildings around this little diagram. And then from there, you see point-to-multipoint products going out and reaching. Some are going to the street poles where they could be doing video security. Some are could be public Wi-Fi. The idea is that with this architecture, you can provide gigabit everywhere. When we come to the kind of the traditional, what millimeter wave was really founded to do, it was mobile and small cell backhaul. But backhaul has grown. I mean, aside from whether you're doing a front haul, mid haul, backhaul, the connections and the ideas have changed over the years. It used to be just a point-to-point link, backhauling a cell tower. But now as small cells deploy, and we do believe with the advent of 5G, small cells will become pretty dominant in the 5G networking. You need to be a little bit more clever about how you backhaul all those individual small cells. And that's where with our different products, you can see the point-to-point, the point-to-multipoint, the mesh, our software tools, Windy, which is our network design tool, Runner, which is our layer 2 SDN SON tool, and even our AMS. All of this comes together to provide that mobile small cell backhaul solution. Smart cities, the third application that we talked about, and again, it looks similar to the previous slide, and that's because it is really the difference between the two is that the smart city is who owns it, and this is something that cities are figuring out right now. What cities know is that they have an asset, and they're really well poised to take advantage. But what they're trying to figure out is they're not necessarily IT guys who want to run a network. Nevertheless, the smart cities recognize the need for gigabits. They need gigabits in a lot of areas. And again, the one thing I think we can all confidently say is you're going to need more gigabits tomorrow than you do need today. And the last slide, to kind of make this real before we get to our first poll question. This is a project that we have been involved in Cleveland. Cleveland has 50,000 homes with no internet access, not poor internet access, no internet access, which is just unbelievable. So we worked with a ISP, a WISP in the area called Digital C, and working with them, we've done the design for a 40,000 home network. We have done this design, and we are now connecting each of these areas with the Siklu Solutions and public Wi-Fi to try and get these residents internet access. As you can imagine, in a COVID world where you cannot go to school, that's 50,000 houses with kids that are suffering from an education or lack of education. So, you know, we talk dBs and we talk dollars and angles and frequencies and all that. But this slide is to remind us, you know, what is the impact and the effect of what we're really doing. And as the quote from the gentleman on the right says, it's not about connecting houses or buildings, it's about connecting people. And with that, I think we're ready for our first poll.
All right, which best describes your throughput requirements? And we're going to give it about 10 more seconds. And 5 more seconds. All right, it looks like 11% said less than 1, 63% said 1 to 5, 16% said 6 to 10, and 11% said greater than 10.
Great, thank you, Jocelyn. Thank you, Dave. So what I wanted to talk a little bit with you now is just give you a high-level overview of our products, as well as our SaaS-based software offerings. Obviously, you can learn more by reaching out to your DoubleRadius sales rep. So first of all, kind of looking at the different product solutions that we offer, and Dave's already talked a little bit about those in his presentation, you know, ranging both from the E-band as well as the V-band solutions in terms of the frequencies. So starting on the left, we have our rooftop high capacity point-to-point radios. These are the E-band radios within the 70-80 gigahertz frequency. So these are the likely licensed radios. They do require an FCC license, but it's, you know, they say it's only $75 for per link for a 10-year license. And these come with a range of different capacities, starting at 1 gigabit per second all the way up to 10 gigabits per second full duplex capacity. So if you need a really high bandwidth, you know, 10 gig can provide you with that. And also with a range of distances, depending on the type of antenna, you know, that you require. We do a number of different antennas depending on the distance required. And the distances range from, you know, literally, you know, a few hundred meters all the way up to several miles, depending on the amount of bandwidth you require, the level of availability you require. You know, we've done some deployments with, I think the longest one we've done is close to 20 miles. Okay, that's obviously you know, very, very long link, but typically in the range more of around 3 to 5 miles or so. And they're typically, you know, rooftop installed or on a tower. Then we go on to the V-band products. So we have the point-to-point street level radios. These are, you know, smaller. They have integrated antennas. They're more designed to go onto, well, let's say, street furniture like a traffic signal or a lamppost or something, but also can be mounted onto a building. You know, typically shorter range, up to about half a mile or so, about 1 kilometer. The point-to-points are about a gig bandwidth. And then we have our more recent additions, the point-to-multipoint radios, the Multihaul radios, which are great for applications like a parking lot, for example, where you may be, you know, connecting to video surveillance cameras or Wi-Fi access points, or a city-type deployment. You know, shorter range, about quarter of a mile, around 300 plus meters distance, and about 1.8 gigabits per second. So our latest offering, which Dave mentioned as well, is our Terragraph mesh solution, which we will literally just launched at the end of last year, and we just started shipping as well. This is a mesh solution, with failover, redundancy, much higher bandwidth, up to 16 gigabits per second aggregated capacity. So ideal for doing, large, dense deployments, for example, in a neighborhood, connecting multiple single-family homes or apartment buildings together, or even a smart city application as well, connecting, multiple intersections, traffic lights, street lights, applications like that. So really providing a wide range of connectivity. So if you kind of look at it from a coverage point of view, as I mentioned, we have a range of different models, different solutions for different applications, both from a distance point of view as well as a bandwidth point of view. One of the key things that Siklu provides, I can share a little bit later on as well, is that we have a design service available. So, you don't need to decide, okay, what's the best solution, what's the best radio for my application, depending on the bandwidth or the distance I need. But we are here, of course, our distribution partners like DoubleRadius are here as well to support you in putting those designs together and figure out what's the best solution for your particular application. So as I mentioned, we recently launched our Multihaul Terragraph solution. This is the latest offering from Siklu, which is shipping now and is going to be available in distribution in the next couple of weeks. I know DoubleRadius have some coming in, I think, in the next couple of weeks or so. So currently we have a couple of different models available, and these are going to be increasing in range over the next coming months. So on the left-hand side, you'll see the distribution node. This is a 360-degree radio. So it's basically, gives you surround wireless, if you like, so surround connectivity. It's actually made up of 4 sectors, 4 90-degree sectors. So, basically no blind spots. It's complete, ubiquitous coverage. It's a single cable installation, so single, Cat6 cable to connect to it. You can also connect fiber to it, if you're, connecting also the high bandwidth. It's got a built-in switch, so you don't need any external box from a networking point of view. So it's very simple to install. It's designed to be, a single-person installation type thing. And then you've got a client node or terminal unit on the right. So we have a number of models that we're going to be launching in the next few months. We've got one model which we launched already. And this is going to have availability in a different number of options, different number of ranges. For example, you can fit antennas to it for longer distances. So this will be mounted on a building. It could be a single-family home. It could be an apartment building, or a lamppost, traffic signal, etc., to connect to the distribution node. And you can have, of course, multiple terminal units or client nodes, actually up to 16 connected per sector of the distribution node. So the Terragraph range of products from Siklu, they're designed to be the easiest Terragraph radios to install. So very, very simple installation, basically working out of the box. You don't necessarily need a network controller to manage or control or set up the network. You can do it without. It basically works like any DSL, fiber, GPON type solution. So Ethernet, very, very simple connectivity. Of course, Siklu provides training on the installation, how to do that, as well as support during the installation process. From a networking point of view, it's got some very high levels of features. For example, the lowest latency available within this type of product family, Terragraph. The highest packets per second as well within the Terragraph types of solution. It provides support for full VLANs as well, provider bridge as well. So you kind of want to look at it from a diagrammatical network topology point of view. So this could be a neighborhood of a city, similar to the diagrams we showed earlier on, where you may have fiber coming into a building in one part of the neighborhood, and from there you want to try and connect to a multitude of different buildings where you don't have fiber. Putting in fiber, as we all know, can be very, very expensive, particularly in urban areas where you're gonna have to dig up streets. So it can be very disruptive, and also take a long time as well getting the permits, as well as the cost implications. So using mmWave wireless as we talked about earlier on, is really the only solution to get that high bandwidth gigabit capacity to those areas where you need it, where you don't have fiber. So there could be single family homes, as shown on here, as well as maybe high-rise buildings, apartment buildings, etc. Now with the Terragraph, Multihaul Terragraph solution, this is really the best way of being able to do that, to scale that to very large deployments with literally hundreds, if not thousands of buildings, all connected wirelessly. The big benefit of Terragraph as well, it gives you redundancy. So, if one link for whatever fails because of power, because of line of sight issues or any other kind of reason, automatically fail over to another link. So it gives you very high level of availability, and it's done automatically. So, you don't have to send a text out there to try and fix the problem, replace the radio, whatever it is, it'll automatically fail over. So this is something which is obviously, very, very good from a QoS point of view. So, kind of a little bit about what Terragraph is. Some of you may have heard of Terragraph. So Terragraph is actually an initiative which Facebook announced as part of their TIP program, the Telecom Infra Project, if you like, back in 2016. So it's a few years in the making, if you like. And it's basically an ecosystem of 60 gigahertz solutions, okay, wireless solutions. And Siklu, we've been deploying 60 gigahertz over the last 10 years or so. This is actually our 5th generation of 60 gigahertz radios. So we're definitely subject matter experts when it comes to 60 gigahertz. This technology allows millimeter wave wireless to deploy it in a mesh topology, which is obviously a first, a much higher levels of bandwidth, and the whole kind of reason behind Facebook doing this, and of course different vendors like Siklu getting behind it as well, is really to increase the availability of bandwidth in areas where it's currently not available. For example, like the city of Cleveland, which we looked at a cost point which is very low. So from a business case point of view, it makes sense to deploy it where otherwise there was really no other option, where fiber is not available, too expensive, and maybe even other types of solutions which are not available. And of course, the bandwidth as well. So there are a number of vendors like Siklu bringing out Terragraph solutions. We're one of the first to market. As said, we're shipping within the next couple of weeks. We've already done a number of trials around the world showing how this technology is actually working, and it's shown to be very, very successful, and it's definitely going to become the leading technology, if you like, in internet connectivity. So at this point in time, we're going to look at poll number 2. So Jocelyn, do you want to take it from here?
Thank you. Which best describes your current network and deployment capacity? I'm going to give about 20 seconds for this one. About 10 more seconds. All right, 33% need additional capacity now, 47% said capacity is adequate for the short term, 20% said capacity is adequate for the foreseeable future.
Okay, thank you, Jocelyn. So now we're going to look at Siklu's SaaS offering. So not only are we a hardware company, providing hardware wireless solutions, also we provide a number of different SmartHaul SaaS solutions, so software as a service software solutions, really to support the hardware that we provide. So first of all, we have what's called our SmartHaul Link Budget Calculator. So this is a calculator tool. This is available free of charge as a service on our website. So you just got to go to the website, find Link Budget Calculator. And this is a very good tool to calculate the availability and the bandwidth of a certain link that you may be looking to deploy within a certain area. All you're going to do is identify the area where you want to do the deployment. In this example over here, for example, we've got some on the East Coast. You want to put in the distance of the link, the type of product, and it's going to give you the availability. for that particular link at that particular distance with the bandwidth as well. So it's a very, very useful tool to work out those types of features. Okay, the next one is our wireless network design engine called Windy, which Dave talked about earlier on. So this is actually a design tool which our customers can use. You can actually register to use this tool. We also provide training on how to use the tool. You can use it for very simple designs as well as extremely complex designs with literally hundreds, if not thousands, of points, if you like. So it could be a neighborhood where you're trying to connect, dozens, if not hundreds, of single-family homes within the neighborhood, the subdivision, or it could be a complete city where you may be connecting different buildings or street assets, street light, lampposts, etc. And it's going to give you an optimum design. It's going to give you a bill of materials of what products to use, the connections. So it's a very, very useful tool. Again, it's a tool which is free of charge. It's available for you to use. You have to go to our website and register for it. We can also provide training on how to use it. And it gives you some very nice reports. For example, I mentioned, bill of materials, RF designs. So it's a very useful tool. Our latest Terragraph radios are also within the tool. So you can actually do a Terragraph design using this tool as well. It is in the cloud, by the way, so nothing you're going to download or anything. So then we have what's called an EMS management engine as part of the SmartHaul family as well. So this is a management and monitoring tool. So this is a solution that we do sell. It's available either as a on-prem downloadable application, or you can also do it in the cloud, or you can have a lease type system. So you've got a few different options. So this basically gives you a dashboard of all the Siklu radios that you have in your network. So it shows you the performance of the radios, the bandwidth. Also, if any radios are down or anything, it shows you a map, gives you a map of the topology of the network, so you know what radio is connected where and what's connected to it. So it's very useful for larger types of deployments to manage the wireless network, and you can also use it for doing, for example, firmware upgrades, en masse firmware upgrades rather than doing it individually. So it's very useful for managing the network. So just from a summary point of view, now we've kind of looked at, obviously the different Siklu solutions, both from a hardware as well as software point of view, the different applications, a few different use cases. Just kind of want to share with you kind of some of the service offerings that we have available as well. So I already mentioned, we're not just a hardware company. We provide a wide range of services, which really, I think, differentiates Siklu from a lot of our competitors. We have a very strong pre-sales and post-sales support team within the US as well as globally. So depending on which part of the world you're located, we can provide both pre-sale support in terms of helping you put designs together, but also post-sale support in terms of an actual help desk where people are on the phone, and so supporting technicians out in the field, actually installing the radios. We provide a host of different training services, both online, e-learning, as well as webinar. Obviously, the word of the day, right, currently. And outside of COVID, we do in-house training as well where required. We offer extended warranties as well for our solutions. So if you need like a 5-year or even longer software support agreement, on our solutions, we can provide that also. And then finally, we have implementation services. So if you don't have your own in-house installation team, you want to subcontract that out, we can help you with that with either Siklu Professional Services, or we can introduce you to one of our partners who can actually do the installation for you as well if required. So just kind of from a summary point of view, kind of things we've already talked about a little bit. So, Siklu provides gigabit broadband basically for a number of different applications, and it could be only need a few hundreds of megabits per second, or you could need up to 10 gigabits per second for duplex. We can support that from distances of literally a few hundred yards up to several miles and more. Okay, so definitely come and talk to us if you need something like that. It's very much a future-proof technology. It's very, very scalable. In terms of bandwidth, it's really the only wireless solution that can give you this level of bandwidth. And this, of course, it's all about bandwidth. It just keeps going up and up as the different use cases come about. And there's a number of different applications that we support. From long distance backhaul, smart cities, video surveillance. Single family homes, people working from home, studying from home, of course. We provide, we like to call fiber performance with wireless flexibility. So all the performance that you get from fiber without the cost, if you like. So the wireless flexibility, the wireless cost with fiber performance. Virtually zero interference, which Dave talked about, because of the frequencies we operate in. You don't have to worry about interference with this technology. You don't have to be out there with a spectrum analyzer to figure out what frequencies, what channels you can use, because the beam angles are so narrow. And we're definitely a pedigree. We've got over 100,000 radios units deployed globally, so we have a lot of experience in terms of what we're doing. So I think at this point in time, we're going to open up to questions. Jocelyn?
So the first question, is it possible to double the bandwidth using LACP?
I'll go ahead and take that one, Alex.
Sure.
So our Etherhaul product line, our point-to-point product line, the models that work in the V-band and the E-band do support LACP. Our 8010, which is our 10 gigabit full duplex product, that feature is not there now, but it is on the roadmap. But in general, soon all of our point-to-point products do support LACP.
All right, question number 2. What options are there for distances further than 1.9 miles?
Alex, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. It was a question, what options are there for distances further than 1.9 miles? Is that right, Jocelyn?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, no, absolutely. So if you're looking at 1.9 miles, you definitely need to use an E-band radio, not the V-band. The V-band is going to typically up to about 1 kilometer, about 0.6 miles. So E-band will go up to several miles. We would definitely recommend 2-foot antennas, which is a large antenna that we do. So you'd have a pair of 2-foot antennas. EH2500 radio, that's a 2 gig radio, with 2-foot antennas, depending on the environment, the amount of rainfall within the area, which can limit the distance, is the best option for that. If you need 10 gig, the 8010 radio is also another good solution. So 1.9 miles, we can quite easily deliver 5 nines availability with the right setup.
Yeah, and if you do need to go further, we have a feature we call Extend MM, which allows dual band operation from a single unified interface. The idea being that you have a lower frequency link that maybe it can only carry a gigabit, but it can go 5 miles, and that you would deploy your mmWave system with Siklu with this lower frequency link. And if the mmWave link started hitting too many errors because you had a heavy rainstorm, then it would switch over automatically to the lower capacity but longer range link. And then when that rainstorm or momentary event passes, it will switch right back automatically.
All right, third question. For the Terragraph products, what end user devices are compatible?
I'll keep talking. So the whole idea of Terragraph is to have an industry standard that's interoperable, right? The idea is that customers want to be able to buy a base station or a distribution node from one company and buy the terminal unit from the other. So, how well that works remains to be seen. But so every vendor is working on the terminal units or the subscriber units. We have released with what we're shipping now is pretty standard terminal unit, very similar to our existing Multihaul in look and shape. Would in the future, we have longer range versions that will go much further. We also have in the roadmap, if any of you are familiar with our compact terminal unit, which is about the size of your smartphone, that is also on the roadmap for Terragraph. So we'll continue to proliferate different devices based on the use case.
And also just add to that, bear in mind that you can just connect any IP device to that. It's got a RJ45 to it. So to a terminal unit, you can connect the switch, any IoT device really. It could be Wi-Fi access point, it could be an IP camera, whatever you want. Those terminal units have a built-in switch basically, so you can connect device directly to the terminal unit.
And then for Terragraph, for Terragraph, any ideas how to solve backup power when mounting at poles and traffic lights?
Yeah, so we don't sell any backup power supplies, any UPSs ourselves, but we do partner with companies who do that. So we have a number of partners who provide like UPS power supplies, whatever, as a backup to power. So we definitely reach out to us if you want to know some partners that we work with. If you don't have continuous power, sometimes you're putting these devices on a lamppost, for example, and they don't have 24/7 power, it's switched power. Then also there's what's called a power bridge, which will basically it'll charge batteries at night when there is power to the lights. During the day when perhaps there's no power, the radios and any of the devices on the lamppost, for example, will work off the batteries. So again, we have partners who provide that type of solution as well.
For Terragraph, distance and vertical coverage for self backhauling? That's all for that question. I think he's bouncing off the last question.
Yeah, let me see if I can interpret that. So because Terragraph is a mesh protocol and a mesh topology, you are self backhauling. Within the system, we have designed specific amount of the radio capacity that's dedicated to doing that backhaul. So a distribution node could be talking to terminal units and another distribution node doing its own self backhaul. I'm not sure if that covers the question completely though.
And then when will Terragraph enabled products be available?
As Alex, I said, we're shipping. We are shipping.
You guys, DoubleRadius should have them in your warehouse within the next couple of weeks or so.
All right. So we're just going to take a couple minutes to get any more questions that we have. In the meantime, feel free to enter them into the questions box. While we're giving a minute for questions to be entered, let me just share briefly about additional resources we have available, which are all accessible in the footer of our website, www.doubleradius.com. Subscribe to our newsletter, follow us on social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, subscribe to our blog. Whatever way you prefer to stay informed, these are all here for you as options. If you have to choose just one, we would suggest subscribing to our monthly newsletter as we pack a lot of info into those. But go ahead and answer or ask any questions in the question box that you may have.
I'll just add a couple other points as well, if you like, because some people ask us, for example, how does weather affect mmWave wireless? Is probably one of the most common questions we get asked, like rain, snow, fog, things like that. People say, well, is it affected by fog? And the answer is no. The only kind of weather that can limit the distance of mmWave is heavy rainfall. Okay, we're not affected by snow, dust, fog, anything like that. Okay, no effects on it whatsoever. And heavy rain can limit the distance depending on the kind of distance you're looking at. If you're doing, a distance of, a few hundred meters or even a few miles, again, it's a question of really selecting the right type of product. Now, as Dave mentioned, even if you're doing, 5, 10 miles or something like that, we can still provide a solution. Perhaps for the longer distances, you may want a backup radio, like the lower frequency radio, 6 gigahertz or something like that. So when there's heavy rain, the mmWave radio may lose connectivity. It'll then fail over to the lower frequency radio to give you at least some kind of connection.
Yeah, this is our link budget calculator that we mentioned, takes into account your rain region. So what really the question is back to the customer of how many nines of availability do you want? If you want a 6-9 solution, and that means it's going to be down, I think less than six seconds a year, then you're going to need to keep the range a little bit limited because there will be that heavy rainfall. If you can live with a 3 nines and a 5, then you'll be able to take that link a little further. All of that information is calculated in our link budget calculator, and just like microwave link budget calculators, we use, statistical data on average rainfalls, I think the last 40 years or something like that.
The other thing we get asked quite a bit, what about line of sight? I mean, with anything with high bandwidth, you do need line of sight. A mmWave does require line of sight. Having said that, the line of sight can be pretty small. You don't need a football field line of sight. We often do projects where we're literally shooting between the trees or between buildings or even underneath the tree line or above the tree line. As long as you can see the radio you're trying to hit, then you're good to go. I have a simple saying I like to use: if you can see it, you can shoot it. You see the radio trying to hit, you're good to go. That's the only thing you need to kind of be aware of, that's all.
And our last question on the website, how do you take full use of Windy?
How do you take full use? If you haven't used Windy so far, I would suggest that you contact us and we can take you through a short little training session. It's very, very simple. And once you spend maybe half an hour with our support team learning Windy, you'll be dangerous.
Awesome. Thank you guys. And with that last question, it looks like that's a wrap. So thank you guys so much for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Take care.